All righty. If I can see it every now and then. Yeah. Got it, okay. My name is Jerry Gill, and I'm interviewing Bonnie Smith in the ConocoPhillips Alumni Center on the campus of Oklahoma State University. This interview is conducted on September 19th, 2008, as part of the O State Storage Project. And so, Bonnie, my first question is you can just tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up, a little bit about your early childhood.
All right. I grew up at Bull Lakes, Oklahoma, but I was born at Ada, Oklahoma, when my parents were enrolling in school there. And I was born between semesters. They taught in country schools and would go to school in the summer working on their degrees. At that time, you could pass a teacher's examination and be allowed to teach. And also at that time, the teachers at East Central, where they were going, were paid according to the number of students they had. Mother and Daddy did not have a car, so it kind of limited as to the subjects they could take as to when they were being offered. So one of the band director there, called Dad Finham, asked them if he could enroll them in one of his evening classes, and they said, well, they would be glad to, except they had no way to get there, and they had a brand new baby, a son 2 years old and a son 4 years old. He said, that's all right, just bring a quilt, we'll make a pallet for them. So that's really when I started to school. I started college first, and that's also when I learned to sleep through class. So, then from there, at that time, we lived at a place called Bird's Mill, which is just south of Ada. And my parents then later moved to Seminole County. They had a small 8th grade school there by the name of Allen, which is not the town of Allen. And while they were there, the oil boom hit Seminole County. And there were no schools, no high schools. They had 8th grade schools, but no high schools. And the boards of 2 of the different schools invited my dad to please start a high school at Bull Lakes, which would be midway between the two. So he started the high school in 1926, and that was their home for the next 25 years. And I graduated from Bull Lakes High School in 1941 and came to the best college in all the world. The Cowboy Quartet and different ones with the Entertainment Bureau used to come out and entertain the high schools to recruit students. And that was the first time I'd heard the Cowboy Quartet, and we were very impressed.
Was Ashley Alexander, was he head of that at that time?
No, that was long before Ashley Alexander. I believe A. Frank Martin probably was in charge of it then. You
obviously have a lot of pride, Bonnie, in OSU, but what influenced you to come to OSU?
Well, my parents had worked on their master's degree up here, again in the summertime. They never did get to go to a regular semester. They either went to extension courses or correspondence courses, Saturday or night classes. And they both ended up with enough college hours to have PhDs, but they decided to get their master's here at OSU. And I was up here, I guess, from about kindergarten age on at different times during the summer, and just loved it. And there wasn't any other school as far as I was concerned.
You're sort of predisposed to OSU.
Right. Not only that, when I came to college here, I had some of the same professors that my parents had had, and they had already taught us a lot of that while we were in high school, of the things they had learned here in college. So it gave me a step up, really, to be able to do that.
That's great. So you come to OSU, what was your major, Bonnie?
Home economics, vocational home economics. And actually I worked up here in the summer between my junior and senior years in high school as state secretary of FHO, and worked in, I believe, the vocational home economics was in one end of the prefab, and vocational agriculture was in the other end. And got a lot of really good experience there. And it was home. I lived in the dorm that summer and got a head start.
That's good. Did you have any favorite professors or staff people that you remember, who were especially good to you?
I will always have a really soft spot for one lady in particular. Her name was Ruth Taylor. And mainly because when we would all go to class, we would be told when a certain examination was, and they would have all of the sections of that class seated and take the examination at the same time. And usually there was a different instructor with the different sections. And Mrs. Taylor announced to the group that we were going to have this particular exam, and it would be an open book exam. So, as bright and smart as I was, I went to the library and checked out every reference book we had that semester, took it to the examination with me. Well, one of the ladies, teachers of another class, came and said, Miss Emerson, you'll have to close your book. That isn't allowed. So I thought, she just doesn't know what Mrs. Taylor told us. So I would wait till she turned her back, and then I'd open the books again. And later in the year, when we were being tested more or less for certain honors, I was being recommended for one of the honors. And the other teacher said, oh no, she cheats. And Mrs. Taylor stood up and said, there's no way that Bonnie would cheat. And she stood up for me till I got the honor. And I'll never forget how wonderful she was to believe in me. And I truly had not cheated intentionally. It was because she called me in and told me what the other teachers said. And she said, did you cheat? And I told her what had happened. I said, you announced it was an open book exam, so I took the books and I looked at them. And she said, it was my error. But I thought it was so wonderful for her to stand up for a student like that.
Who was the dean of women at that time you were there?
Dean Stout.
She
was another one that stood up for me too.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all scared of her because I don't know how tall she was. I would guess about 6 feet tall. And it was rumored that don't ever wear red because Dean Stout thinks it excites the boys. So we all avoided red when we were going to be around Dean Stout. So that first Christmas dinner she came to, here she was wearing a bright red dress. So we weren't afraid to do it after that. We all wore red when we wanted to.
Do you remember President Bennett, Henry G.
Yes.
Bennett? What do you remember about Dr. Bennett?
I remember that he was probably one of the smartest politicians that Oklahoma had. And he knew how to work the legislature. And under him was when the 25-year plan was instigated. And that was 25 years that we would have certain buildings built. And if I remember correctly, he came from Southeastern Teachers College in Durant and brought with him Mr. Tompkins. I think he brought Dean Patterson. He brought Dean Stout and Miss Prosser, who really was the most brilliant woman up here and probably the most brilliant person. She ran the university.
And what was Miss Prosser's title, Bonnie?
I don't know what her title was, but she had charge of all of the finances of the university. And I remember when they brought the first computer in and set it up there in Whitehurst Hall. And it was about, if you divide this room in half, it'd be about that size. So it was, but she had a very stern expression, and you would think she didn't have a congenial bone in her body, but she went all out to help anybody that needed it. She was a wonderful person.
She really had a reputation of being pretty tough, didn't she?
Yes, she did have, but she was soft-hearted. One semester after World War II started, we were asked to move 3 times in one semester. We would be told at 9 o'clock in the morning to be out by 5. So that meant automatically you skipped classes for 3 days, which was usually all you were allowed. And she was so cooperative in helping every student find a room so they could get their stuff out and get moved. And she helped whenever she needed it, or whenever we needed it. And she was very kind to all of us.
What you kind of mentioned a little bit having to move, and in what other ways was campus different here during World War II?
Well, for the girls, Jerry, it was wonderful because they had moved nearly all the men out to go to service. But they moved hundreds of men back in. And that was why we were moved out of the dormitories. It was to make room for the armed forces that were coming in. And each morning, they would have these groups of servicemen marching down the street. And of course, the girls would all be on the side admiring them and choosing which one they might want to get acquainted with. But at that time, they rented all of the fraternity houses for girls' dormitories, and they called them victory houses. And I lived in V5, which was the Sigma Nu house. I lived there for 2 years. And they had the girls from Coast Guard, which I believe were called spars. The ones from the Navy were called waves, and they were all in uniform all the time. The men were in Army uniforms, and I don't remember whether, I know there were a lot of them that were ASTP. Then they had a foreign language program that they moved native Japanese people in to teach Japanese to the ones that were in that. And I believe that was the program for the Navy.
You said ASDP?
ASTP.
And that is what?
Army
Student training.
Student Training Program. And it was really rough too, because during that time, a lot of people lost people they loved very, very much. And at that time also, a group of the men from OSU that were in our OTC were all taken on the bus to Fort Sill to be drafted and then returned. And they waited here until there was room at Camp Roberts, California, and they shipped all that group out to Camp Roberts. And after they got through with their training program out there, they were supposed to go on to Officers Candidate School in Fort Benning, Georgia. But the war had escalated so rapidly that they did not have room for them at that time, so they shipped them back to OSU. They didn't have room in any of the dormitories, so at first they put them in the stadium, underneath the stadium. And finally they were able to get the 3rd floor of the firehouse, the fire station. And they told the men that if they were willing to act as volunteer firemen, then they would set that 3rd floor up for them as their dormitory. So that entire group then moved up there, and they acted as volunteer firemen during that.
What were some special things in terms of supporting the war effort? Did you send letters? Did you do
Yes.
certain things that you did?
And we were just like the men in service. We sent them to several people. But no, we had special money raising projects of all kinds. And the thing I guess that is most memorable about it was the rationing program. We had ration books that had ration stamps in them. And when we came to college, each semester we would turn our ration book in, and that there would be a stamp for sugar, fat or butter, I believe shoes, and then you were allowed a certain amount of gasoline, or people were that had cars, and the tires were rationed, gasoline was rationed. And then when we would go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas, then they would give us a certain number of stamps back that we could use while we were home then.
I guess it's difficult to get hold of silk hose too, isn't it?
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. We didn't have silk hose. We had, most of them were cotton at that time and had seams up the back. And we had all learned how to mend the hose if you got a runner in them. But we also learned that if you could use pancake makeup on your legs, then you could have a nice tan finish on your legs, and then you take an eyebrow pencil and draw the seam up the back. And you saved an awful lot of money on hose because you couldn't get them anyway. So.
That's great. Well, Bonnie, a little bit about you. So your student experience at Oklahoma State, I know you were, how do you feel about being the first woman Student Government Association
I
president?
felt very good about it, real truthfully. I was very idealistic, and I really wanted to accomplish a lot, and felt that if the representatives would just let the independents alone, we could run the college.
Well, you mentioned independence. Now, let me kind of ask you, can you kind of share with us some stories about the election process and were there sort of some underground parties maybe, or
Yes.
can you kind of share with us about the campaign and the parties?
We had, on the independent side, we had a man by the name of Russell Hallway and a man by the name of Farrell Rogers that were notorious for their campaigning. And they loved politics. And the year before I came, Russell was well known for having held a pep rally down by Theta Pond. And that was the center of Willard, North Murray, and Murray Hall. So they encouraged all of the girls from the dorms to come down. And he addressed them as ladies and sorority girls. Well, our Dean of Women did not appreciate that, so he was punished slightly by staying on campus for a while. And then Farrell also was instrumental in helping get everybody out to vote, and he did this secretly, of course, by getting crew out about 2 o'clock in the morning before the election started the next morning, painting on the sidewalks down to the independents, which we all attributed to the representatives for doing that.
So now, you weren't supposed to have parties, so these were sort of clandestine parties?
No, there were two. They were just like the Democrats and Republicans.
Okay, so there was the independent party and the Greeks?
And no, it's called representatives. The Greeks were the representatives.
Representative, okay, called representative
and they had, then there was an underground group called T&E.
Maybe that's the one I'm thinking about.
And it was supposedly not supposed to exist. But I don't know who all was members of it, but I do know that it existed because I had, for many years, one of the membership certificates that one of the members had left in his files when he went off to service.
So T&E stands for, do you remember what it stood for?
Theta New Epsilon.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it was supposedly, now this is all hearsay because I don't think any women were allowed in, but supposedly they were able to get the top men in every organization secretly so that they were able to control the elections. They did the vote counting and a few things like that.
So now you ran as an independent.
Yes.
Okay, and how was it a close election, or do you call it, or do you know?
No, in fact, the day before the election, the one of the top representative men, one of the top representative women, invited me to go have a Coke with them over at Swims. And they said if I would please run on their ticket, they'd make sure that I would get elected. And cocky as I was, I said, I'm not going to run on your ticket, and I'm going to get elected anyway. Because we had the most votes. We did win. But we all had a cause. We wanted to.
That's great.
Wanted to come out right.
Did you have a campaign slogan, or did you have some
No, just
what
vote
was
independent.
platform?
Just
a
vote
platform.
independent. But no, we had a good time.
What were some of the favorite student hangouts at that time?
Swims was one, and it's on the corner now, more or less diagonally across from Eskimo Joe's. There's I believe a student bookstore there maybe.
Right.
And they had, downstairs they had a small dance floor, certainly a jukebox, and they had a fountain and sold school supplies, drug supplies, and a kitchen, and then upstairs, I believe Bus Swim and his family lived up there. And then there was a place called Brooks, and I don't remember which it was first, Brooks or Miles, but it was next to the campus theater, which was right across from the fire station.
Right.
And it was really preferred because it was newer and larger, and had real good food there too. But they would have bands such as Tommy Dorsey's band come in, and there wasn't a dance floor that I remember, but it was large enough that everybody could fill up the hall just to enjoy it.
Did Jimmy Baker came after the war? Didn't he? Wasn't there
He
then?
was here before the war.
His collegiate band? Did he ever play there?
Yes. Well, I don't know if he played there, but he played at student dances, and that was one way that Student Senate raised money was they held dances in the old gym, which now is the architectural building. And Jimmy played there, Jerry Poole, and Marvin, should remember Marvin's last name, I don't, but they were really good bands. And it was always required that there would be chaperones there. And they would, the student senate the senators would take turns sitting at the door and collecting the money. And they would always try to get their favorite chaperones, which were Dr. and Mrs. Woods. And they were wonderful people and very understanding.
That wasn't Mom Woods, was it? It was Mom Woods.
No, that was a different one.
That was the SA house for years. It was a house. Mother.
One thing that I wanted to tell you about the days before all the beautiful gardens around Theta Pond were built. That was just one big grassy, weedy place, and a man by the name of Mr. Thompson, was Byron Thompson, I believe,
Byron Thompson,
was in charge of seeing that it was improved. So they started to fertilize all that area. And we were across the street from it in the Sigma Newhouse, and they did not have sidewalks at that time, and it ended up being one of the rainiest winters we had ever had. And Mr. Thompson would bring all the chicken manure over to fertilize all that area. So the Sigma Newhouse then automatically became known as the Sigma Manure House. So it was, I don't know where they outlived that yet or not, but the beautiful garden sale, and it was worth it.
Let's see, change this a little bit. You're also a cheerleader, is that right?
Yes.
So, I mean, this is quite a
Probably because I had the biggest mouth on campus. I certainly was not graceful, and we did not turn flips and do all that they can do now.
You had the long skirts and
we had white pleated skirts below the knees and wore white satin shorts or tights beneath that, so nothing showed. We wore, they had heavy white wool sweaters that you wore no matter if summer, winter, or fall. You wore those sweaters, and you wore saddle Oxfords and white anklets. And it was the style in those days. The dirtier your saddle Oxfords were, the more they were in.
So now, what years, Bonnie, were you a cheerleader?
Started in my sophomore year, which would have been 42 through 45.
So was that Bob Fenimore's first year? Was that your last year?
No, I believe he may have been there when I was junior.
Mm-hmm.
He and Neil Armstrong came at the same time.
So you got to cheer for them and watch them play?
Oh, yes.
That must have been pretty exciting.
It was. And one of the most memorable games was the one held over at Tulsa University when Glenn Dobbs was the quarterback then. Mm-hmm. And it was really an offensive battle. And between Neil and Bob, we won.
That's great.
And I also had a cowbell stolen at that game. This guy, who was more than a little bit tipsy, came up and wanted to know if he could just hold my cowbell. He said, I used to be a cheerleader there, and it really would mean, may I just hold your cowbell and ring it? Well, he took off with it, so I wonder if he still has it.
Well, now, Miss Tribe was winning national championships in basketball at that time. With a great football record.
During my, in football, while I was there, we won the Cotton Bowl. And I believe that was my senior year. Mm-hmm. And the next year we won the Sugar Bowl. And then they later won Delta Bowl, I believe. And it was a wonderful time to be here because we had a great sports program.
Was that, so were you there for the 1945 basketball championship team? So you were a cheerleader that year?
Yes.
So you had some pretty special years in Bonnie.
We did, and I thought they'll never survive without me.
That's the reason they were national champions and won the bowl.
We also
right?
won, well, the year that after I graduated, I had the opportunity to be Mr. Iba's secretary and work on my master's at the same time. Mm-hmm. And that was the year that we won the second NCAA title in basketball. And we also won NCAA title in wrestling and in the Sugar Bowl that year. That was why I just thought they couldn't do without me. But the school has just grown tremendously since I left. So,
you were Mr. Iba's secretary?
Yes.
And was that before Dorothy Bunch?
Pardon me?
You remember Dorothy Bunch?
Yes,
for years?
Jerry Bunch was his secretary that succeeded me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Well, what, and other things, I mean, kind of any other activities you're engaged in or involved in that you remember, some special memories that you have of your time on campus?
I really enjoyed all of it. I think I was in several different organizations. And the most of it that I liked the most, I guess, would have been sports, because I enjoyed sports a lot. And I guess the most memorable game that I was in was held at Taft Stadium, or that I went to. Mm-hmm. Taft Stadium in Oklahoma City, because it was when the gas rationing was taking place. And they tried to put the game where everybody could see it, could go to it without spending much gasoline. And by the way, this was during the days where the cheerleaders found their own way to the Cotton Bowl. We didn't have our expenses paid. So we had to catch a ride one way or the other to get out to the stadium. And the OU cheerleaders came over and wanted to know if they could exchange yells, which I do not think is a good idea, but we did, because they really didn't want to yell for OU at all. And when they led our group, then we had to go down in front of their group. And at that time, when I was down on my knees on one of the yells, this big old beer bottle, it was the biggest one I ever saw. It looked like it was like came out of the OU crowd thrown at us. And I did manage to miss that one. But I don't think they ought to exchange yells. They wouldn't be playing against each other if they wanted to yell for the other team. But that was also the year that we had a center named of John Gaddis, who was the captain of the football team. And the bet between the football teams was whichever team lost, the captain of the other team had to push Peanut down to the goal line. And we won, and John enjoyed every minute of that.
Be a sore nose after 100 yards of
yes.
that.
Sore everything.
Yes. Well, you're talking about the, I think maybe you mentioned off-campus newspaper earlier called the Aggie Vader
It was a magazine.
magazine. What do you remember about that?
It was I have one of the copies of it at home, and it was clean, but it was about as corny as you could get in jokes, but it was fun. And I thought it was clean till after I got married. I realized some of the stuff that I took one way was actually intended another way. So they put a lot over it. They had the Oak Legion at that time, and the Aggravator, and the Redskin. And you could not qualify to run for office unless you bought a Redskin. And the filing fee for any office was 50 cents. And believe it or not, it was hard to come by 50 cents.
What any special, we talking about sort of your memorable moments, any embarrassing moments you remember in school?
Yes, but they're too embarrassing to tell.
Okay. Remember, you said you didn't have to answer any questions if you wanted to. Okay. Well, you mentioned the firehouse, the living in the fire station. So now there was the firehouse gang.
Well, at fire station gang or firehouse, either one.
Okay. So what was did you live there?
No, that's where the men who had
Mhm.
attended school here
Okay.
and gone to Camp Roberts were waiting to go to OCS, and that's where they lived. And because they had been on campus, they already knew most of the girls, so they had a better chance of getting a date with all the girls than the soldiers that were shipped in.
Didn't they for several years have reunions? I remember one year a few
Yes.
years ago when they were back.
We still do to a certain extent, but no, we've had reunions for many years. And it was the first one I remember attending was very unusual because nearly everyone there, all the men had married a girl from OSU or A&M. They had children that were attending here at that time. Most of them, I believe all of them at the reunion, had married and were still with that first wife. And it was very unusual.
Now, with all these eligible guys, Bonnie, how did you wind up with Dennis? How did you meet Dennis?
Well, I met him over at Brooks or Miles, and a mutual friend brought him over to the booth and introduced him. I was like, gee, he's cute, but didn't want to know it. But I never did rope him into a date until he was injured and came back, and I happened to be one of the first ones he ran into. And
So when did he come back? What year was that?
I believe it's the winter of came back in 1945.
45.
Fall 45. And he came on sick leave from Brook General Hospital. He'd been injured, and they permitted him to come back on sick leave to finish his degree, which he finished in 1946.
What can you share a little bit? Since the time you did a lot of leadership activities at OSU. I want to ask you, how has that helped you in times of the opportunities and activities outside the classroom? How has it helped in your personal development in your life since you left OSU? You're obviously very much into leadership organizations and activities. Was that important in your development?
I think probably the friendships that I made. Jerry, at one time, we were exchanging Christmas cards with maybe as many as 300 people from Oklahoma State that we felt very close to. We don't exchange Christmas cards with that many anymore because there are not that many of us surviving. But we've remained very close, and it's just the degree I got helped me with my first job, which was home economist with Lone Star Gas Company. I did go ahead and get my master's in education, training, and counseling. Or excuse me, educational administration and counseling. But I found at that time the only thing that was asked of me was, what degree do you have? They didn't ask what it was in. So it was, the master's degree was valuable.
In addition to your academic, you, of course, you probably had a pretty strong personality when you got here, but did it help you develop as a person, and your activities outside the classroom and the leadership things you're engaging in? Did it help you?
I think the
feel
thing that
confident?
helped me most was our church,
Mhm.
because there are a lot of things that students go through in their development that could either make or break you. And the people at our church, I appreciated so much, because if I was going through one stage that would be considered sinful, for instance, at that time it was a sin to dance. And it was really a struggle and to know what to do. But the people at our church were very unjudgmental as far as the students were concerned. They opened their homes to the students, and I can remember many ice cream and cookie sessions of people that I realize now didn't have that much money. But all the students were welcome to come, and I don't remember if I was ever criticized, and nobody ever did it in a way that was hurtful. And also our minister was very good about recommending me for jobs after I got out. And friends to this day, now that we moved back, we still have friends in that church that I remember. For instance, one of the men that was in high school when I first started going there was a song leader. And then he came on to college and been a very successful man. And his sister, I think at that time, was in junior high, and she and her husband are two of the finest people we know.
What was your church, Bonnie?
The Church of Christ.
Church of Christ.
And they're still that way. By the way, they have the association, they call it the University Center. And they adopt, the church, different individuals will adopt children from the University Center, and just, they can use their homes, washing machine, dryers, anything, any help they need, they try to do, and they try to help them with scholarships.
Well, can you talk about kind of transitioning away from OSU? Can you share some of your personal history and some significant events in your life since you left OSU?
One thing that was traumatic was the fact that we couldn't go home as much as we would like to. And it was, I can remember being just physically sick because I got so homesick. And it was mainly on dark, dreary, rainy days, which it was the day that Pearl Harbor happened. And most of us had never heard of Pearl Harbor at that time. But we learned in a hurry. And it was, it really hurt for the boys that we knew, and girls as well, because a lot of the girls went into service at that time, for them to be killed, or their brother or sister be killed in action. But you were always so proud of them. And I don't remember anyone in this whole town or in the state of Oklahoma that objected to having to do without sugar or shoes or butter or any of the things that we take for granted. The only thing that was rough was getting gasoline to go home if you had a car, but most of us didn't have cars. By the way, I do have a solution for the parking problem here. When I worked for Dr. Eccles at one time, who was in charge of passing out the parking permits. Those that were allowed to have parking permits were those who were handicapped, those that commuted. That was it. So needless to say, there were very few cars on campus.
Well, Bonnie, after you got past the war and you graduated from OSU, did could you share a little bit of your life with us, some things that you did, some of your professional opportunities and some of the...
My biggest ambition, I guess, that girls didn't dare come out and say, was to really marry the man of my dreams and have a family. And I was fortunate enough that I was able to be a homemaker. And we had our family, and I was able to stay home.
It's been a long time for her to say
And
that.
I did teach when we first got married until we started our family.
For 2
And then
years.
after, on occasion, I would teach after the children were born. But my main goal was to stay home with them. Dennis became a geologist and was gone, I guess the longest he was gone at one time was 2 months to Australia. And it was very important to us that we not raise our children by babysitters. And they always had a home to go to. And also, we were in the middle of the busing program at one time in Oklahoma City. But before the busing started, there were not buses, so that we had 3 children in 3 different, one in 3 different schools. So by the time you'd get all them delivered, it was time to do that. Jerry, there is one thing that I'd share with you too. This was before the days of integration. And I do remember going home on a bus one night, and the bus would stop along the way to pick up people that wanted to ride. And I remember outside of Chandler, and it was late at night, the bus stopped, and this lady got on and was standing there in the aisle. And I said, "Wouldn't you like to sit down?" Because there was a seat right there next to me. And the bus driver was very shocked. He said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Well, yes, the seat's empty." And she was black. At that time, the blacks were only allowed to sit on the back seat of the bus. They weren't allowed to sit up the other place. But the back seat was all filled with whites. And he did allow her to sit there. But I'm very glad that has changed, just from a human point of view.
Bonnie, you and Dennis have supported scholarships and funded other opportunities for students at OSU through the years. What's been your motivation for your philanthropy, and then how have you in turn been enriched by that?
Our main motivation, I guess, is because we were treated so fairly, so wonderfully. And when Dennis came to school up here, he had a Sears scholarship, I believe for either $50 or $100. Over that, he had to earn all the money that was spent. He drove a garbage truck for a while for $15 a month, so he could buy razor blades and such as that. He worked on different farms here at the university farms. He held numerous jobs and ended up being in Phi Kappa Phi. And we both worked jobs. I believe the first year I was here, I worked for 4 hours a day for 25 cents an hour, or $25 a month. My room and board to dorm was $25 a month. The next year, I got a raise to 30 cents an hour,
Wow.
$30 a month, and room and board was raised to $30 a month. The next year, got a raise up to 50 cents. Room and board went up $50 a month. So we know and appreciate what jobs mean to students. We believe in their working, but not excessively where they can't support their family or themselves and without losing their health. So scholarships are very important to us.
Does it give you a good feeling, Bonnie, knowing that you've been able through these years, been able to help students with their college, and has that been special for you and Dennis?
It is. I think part of it too, I remember what a struggle it was for my parents to get their degrees and raise a family with 3 children. They were always needing whatever was available. And kids haven't changed. And we believe anyone that's willing to come and try is entitled to a chance.
In your opinion, what's special about OSU, and what does it still have to offer young people, similar to what it offered you when you were going to college?
I think it's the attitude that everybody has. I don't know of any place that has the atmosphere that we have up here, and it's the attitude of the people. They're all friendly, and when we first came here, one of the requirements for the freshmen was to people on campus would say, "What do you say, freshman?" And the freshman was supposed to answer back, "Beat OU." Can we do it? And then yes, with a kind of an emphasis before the yes.
They had the howdy week then when you were Gill. You used to have to say howdy to everybody.
Yes, we did. We really did. And I hope I have been treated so courteously here. When we were at one of the barbecue places here one night, and and Dennis and I both have changed appearance more than a little. And he's on a walker, and I have shrunk at least 4 inches, and we've had more than a few health problems. So we came in on this cold, blustery night to get some barbecue. And this young couple from school from here were in line in front of us, and they hadn't decided what they wanted yet. And he said, "You go ahead, please." And I said, "Oh, no, I haven't. Thank you, but I'm doing just fine. I need to make up my mind." So when I got to my seat later, sat the tray down, went back to pay, and the man there at the counter said, "Yours is already paid for." And I said, "Oh, no, I haven't paid yet." He said, "The young people in front of you paid." And I went over to them and said, "May I please pay for it?" And they said, "No, have a great day." And she had on a soccer sweater, and I did find out her name was Hillary Green. And I tried my best to find out, because there are 3 Hillary Greens enrolled here, but because of the Privacy Act, I could not get the addresses of any of them because they're not listed in the phone book. They have cell phones. So I never could even write them much. But to me, that's typical
Very
of
friendly campus.
OSU students.
What do you think leadership opportunities and other student activities outside the classroom are important for students today?
I'm sorry, Terry.
Yeah, just in terms of leadership opportunities and student activities outside the classroom,
Mhm.
do you feel that is important to students today? You were
Yes.
you were very much engaged at your time. Do you
Yes.
feel that's still important for students?
I think it is. I learned, as you have as well, that you get more out of it than the people you help. and they will have a satisfaction there when they have their own family and raise their own children, of knowing that somebody that really cares about them is going to be up here.
You know, you and Dennis have maintained a lifelong relationship with OSU, giving of your time, your talent, your resources. Why have you been so faithful to OSU?
We love it. We lived, I guess, in Oklahoma City for about 40 years, but we found out that we were coming up here at least 3 times a week, because at that time Dennis was on the Board of Governors and they had several meetings. We were coming to the baseball games, we were coming to wrestling matches, football games, basketball games. So when we decided that we were growing a little bit older, that it wasn't very smart to be driving at night all that time. And he was assisting with the group that was raising money for the Carson Creek Golf Course. And we were among those that were interested in getting a lot out there. And we built our home out there. And it has been great because he's 85 now and I'm 84, and we still are able to come in for the games at night, but we would not feel that much at ease if we were in Oklahoma City.
Sure.
Because there are a lot of men drivers on the road coming at you from the other direction. And you really have to take your ease getting through those traffic jams.
Well, sort of a follow-up question to that earlier, but you know, you and this have been involved in the Alumni Association, I know, over the years, and the Oklahoma City chapter there, the OSU Foundation, and other organizations. Can you share some highlights of your activities with the booster groups, with the Alumni Association, the Foundation, trips, different things, some highlights for you?
We had, that's one thing I was thankful that we were able to do, was when we were able physically to make the trips. We got to go to several of the bowl games and to the Big 8 championships. And we're glad we did it while we could. And had a lot of friends, made a lot of friends there that we would not have known otherwise. And I have told you this personally, but we truly mean it. You did a fantastic job as alumni director. And I appreciate the companies helping build this building, but I still think it ought to be Jerry Gill building.
Appreciate this interview is about Bonnie Smith. Thanks. I mean, we got one more question. Why is it important for alumni to stay engaged with OSU? I mean,
Keeps them young.
Keeps them young. Good,
Right.
good.
No, if alumni are not interested, then why should the students be? I do remember this from the cheerleader days on those times that there wasn't a very big crowd there. I kept thinking, why don't the alumni come back? Why don't they show some interest in this? And after I got out and we were trying to finance our own family, and money was tight because you seem to go through a time when you get a job, then you go broke for some reason or another, then you make it back again. During that time, you realize why people don't buy tickets and don't travel hundreds of miles to come back. But when the time comes that you can, you realize also that it's important that you do what you can. And I think we have a big group here that truly love the school. And they, I believe, are trying to do all they can to help, and will continue to do so.
I'm not through, but you mentioned some sports, but Cowboy sports have been special interest. I mean, for obviously you and Dennis, and especially I think golf you mentioned. But what does your where does your passion for sports come from?
I had 2 older brothers, and I tried to do everything they did, and found out early in life if you could cry, that it helped a lot. But on the other hand, if you pestered them enough, they would show you how to hit a ball. And and we had a neighborhood football team, and my brothers and I were on one team, and then kids in the neighborhood were on the others. And my brothers taught me how to catch a football and to run with it. And the boys in the neighborhood found out real quickly if they tackled me, my brothers would beat up on them.
It's kind of unfair, wasn't it?
Well, it's all how you looked at it. It's just a game.
That's right. Okay. Well, there, we in addition to, and we alluded to some of this earlier, some support for scholarships. But in addition to sports, are there other areas of OSU that you and Dennis have special interest in?
I just really am pretty interested in all of it. Dennis was fortunate enough on his first job to go to work for Big Chief Drilling Company. He was hired by a fellow fire station gang member, Frank Lucabaugh, hired him as the geologist. And then Frank's boss was Mr. Payne, who had graduated here at OSU. And he was a wrestler, and I think the flyweight probably at that time. But he adored OSU. He had worked his way through it completely, and then had established Big Chief Drilling Company. And
Well, you worked for Big Chief 2 summers then, year one.
we just loved OSU, and Mr. Payne did as well. So he had a method in his madness, in that anytime you ask him to do a favor, he would ask you to do something back, usually for OSU. So we learned from him that it was a good thing to have.
What, in your mind, what's the importance of sports to the university?
What is the importance?
And the importance of sports to the university?
I think that it really helps the whole group become as one. And I kind of think of OU as the representative and OSU as the independents. And all that group, I have learned too since that time that there are a few good people that come from OU.
A few.
Right. But I think it just helps you come together as one body.
Well, how do you feel about our new facilities, new sports facilities, and the plans for the athletic village?
I think it's fantastic, and I know there are a lot of people that disagree with me on this, but I think it's one of the best things that could have happened to the town of Stillwater. And the improvement in that area is, they're all going to be proud of it when it's done. I think Mike Holder's done it. He and Boone Pickens together have done OSU a big, big favor that couldn't have been accomplished any other way.
In addition, how do you feel about all the building renovations going on and new construction for academic buildings on campus?
I think it's fantastic. We'd come in to town at least twice a day, and all of a sudden there will be a building there that we haven't seen before because that street has been blocked off. Then when it starts again, for instance, the North Classroom building, we didn't even know it was being built till it was already up. And I just think we have so much to be grateful for.
Have you ever seen a time in OSU history like this when there's so much construction, building, and growing going on?
It's really, you can't imagine it unless you've seen it. And this building is another one that's a good example of that.
Well, as alum of OSU, I mean, you're excited about the future of OSU and under the leadership of our new president, Burns Hargis.
I think he will be, and he is probably the best president we could ever have gotten. I think he will be the best one we've had. And we've had some fine ones. I think Dr. Bennett had a lot of foresight. I think that Burns Hargis has the ability to take care of the problem no matter what field it's in. And I know in Oklahoma City he did so much for that town. I would say more than any other man down there. Even in all that the Gaylords did and so many other people like that. I think Burns Hargis accomplished it for Oklahoma City without any self-praise and without any recognition on his own. And everybody down there loved him. I never heard one bad word against him. And I don't know his wife personally, but she has to be a lovely woman.
What, looking back through the years, what are some of your special memories of OSU? When you're here on campus, but since over the years, and some special favorite memories you had?
Well, meeting Dennis. And
you never say that just because he's here.
no. And actually, finally hearing him ask me to marry him, but that wasn't here. He was a hard one to rope in, and but I thoroughly enjoyed all the athletics. I enjoyed all of the dormitories. I lived in 3 different dormitories as well as Sigmund House and apartments, and just got to know everybody all over campus. Of course, there were only about 5,000 students here at the time, so we could be well acquainted with a lot of students.
Bonnie, what about since? Over the years, you've still had that connection for life with OSU over, 50, 60 years since you left. Do you have some favorite memories from times and events since you were on campus?
Since
After you
then.
left OSU?
You mean about OSU?
About OSU.
Well, we've had just an awful lot of activities up here, but again, the friendships that we made have just been wonderful. And to see people like Mr. Payne, who started out with nothing because I think his mother died when he was 4 years old, and for him to be able to accomplish all he did and keep helping people on down the line makes us want to be the same. And we've had 2 sons who graduated here, and we've watched the friendships they've made. One of them still lives in Oklahoma, the other one lives in Texas, but they've been able to be successful in their fields, I feel, because of the attitude that they had when they came up here to school. You don't have that attitude in all universities. And I think that the one that they're able to develop here at OSU is one that will see them through no matter in what field they're going to work, in what city they're going to live, in what state.
You mentioned that Mr. Payne and others, there have been some people who have been special to you through the years, at OSU, but then after you left OSU that have been significant in your life that you associate with OSU?
Well, my parents graduated. Both of them got their masters here. My sister-in-law, Noma Jean Nichols Emerson, was here, and I introduced her to my brother during World War II, so that's been a wonderful, long relationship. And it just kind of goes on down the road. It just keeps multiplying. And the memories that we've had have just been tremendous.
What is there, Bonnie, anything else that you'd like to share? Any thoughts about OSU? You've been associated with it in so many ways and so many different facets, but anything we haven't covered you'd want to share?
No, other than it's just very precious. And I feel sorry for people that have not gotten to attend here. I really do. It was a happy experience for me, and it has proven to make a happy life for us. So I'd recommend everybody try to get in up here.
That's great. All right.